Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to today's webinar. I'm Josh Jones, and today's topic is safeguarding tech recruitment from AI-driven cheating. We're excited to have you on for this important discussion on navigating the boundaries of acceptable and unacceptable uses of AI. I'm thrilled to introduce our esteemed speakers. We've got Adam Kovacs and Kaylin Bailey. Unfortunately, Marcel was unable to make today's session. Kaylin and Adam bring a wealth of knowledge in tech recruitment and hiring innovation. And together, they're going to guide us through the nuances of managing AI's impact on recruiting integrity. Before we get started, I'd like to extend a special thank you to our friends at CoderPad for making today's webinar possible. CoderPad enables talent acquisition practitioners, hiring managers to screen and interview software engineers with realistic coding assessments and live pair programming interviews. Their engaging assessments and intuitive coding environment create a superior candidate experience that keeps developers engaged, while at the same time ensuring you're able to evaluate candidates based on their true skills and hire only best fit talent. Please notice the chat feature located at the upper right-hand side of your screen. This is a great place to engage with content, with speakers, with each other. However, if you have questions for our panel today, please use the Q&A tab so that we can find them quickly. Today's webinar is being recorded, and by the end of the day today, you will receive a link to the playback so that you'll be able to, oh my gosh, it's Jim Stroud.
Hello, hello, hello.
You will be receiving a link to the playback later today. And everybody welcome SourceCon editor Jim Stroud to the stage.
Crashing the party, crashing the party. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Jim, have you met Adam Kovacs and Kaylin Bailey before?
I have met Adam before. Kaylin, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Before we dive into today's topic, everybody that's tuning in from home, please drop into the chat. Where are you tuning in from? Because we want to know, and your network makes the dream work. So feel free to drop your LinkedIn profile into the chat as well. And then let's just start off with some introductions really quick. And I'm just going to go around on the screen as I see it. So Adam, I'll start with you. Tell me about your background and why are you here?
Hey all. So yeah, my name is Adam Kovacs. I'm the founder and the CEO of a talent enablement consultancy called the Talent Foundation, where amongst others, I help early stage and high growth companies build their AI-enabled hiring framework. And I'm also an advisor for an early stage assessment tech startup where I also see a lot of examples and use cases of using AI for hiring and as candidates to get hired.
Awesome, awesome. And you're being modest. One of our most highest rated speakers within our environment of conferences as well. And I'm just going to go around the circle. Jim, who are you and what do you do?
Yes, Jim Stroud here. I am the editor for SourceCon, the original sourcing conference. I've been affiliated with SourceCon off and on since the very beginning. Back in 2007, been involved in recruiting and sourcing for 2 decades and counting in some capacity. Yeah.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being here. You came in a flash when Marcel was unable to make it. So this is going to be an awesome conversation. Kaylin, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'm super excited to be here. It's my first webinar here. So yeah, really been looking forward to it. So I'm Kaylin Bailey, and I lead global talent acquisition for Design Pickle. Back in 2015, we were the world's first subscription-based creative services company. Today, we are an AI-powered SaaS product that enables our design service to be rendered to our clients. We work with clients from small mom and pop shops all the way up to augmenting in-house design teams. So everything from individual creative roles like graphic design, all the way through to CTO. That is me and my team. And I'm not cut from the corporate cloth necessarily. I started my career as a college soccer coach, and so I take a lot of what I learned there and translate that into what I call corporate team building, just in a different context today.
Well, we are excited to have you here. I haven't known you as long as these other guys, but every time I talk to you, I learn something. So I'm very glad that you're here. Thanks for tuning in. And let's dive into this content because ready or not, AI is here, right? There's not much. Can we stop it? Is there a way to put the genie back into the bottle? I don't think so. So let's kind of start by digging into, I guess, defining the issue. AI-driven cheating. And honestly, when we were putting this together, we were kind of hesitant to use the word cheating because, what is it? What's going on? So how would you define AI-driven cheating in the context of tech recruitment? You can either raise your hand or I'll just start calling on you guys.
I'll jump out first. I would define it as using technology to give the appearance that you are more knowledgeable than you actually are. And that may be a slippery slope right there. A couple of examples I would give is there is this software, forget the name of it, it's a video editing software that will allow you to look to the side of the camera, but AI has your face and eyes. So it looks like you're facing the camera, but you're actually over here looking at notes or something like that. So I would probably say that might be in the realm of cheating with AI.
Yeah, I would define it as misrepresenting your skills by using a third party tool of some type, an AI tool of some type. So I think we're probably going to talk about today like the difference between resourcefulness and misrepresentation. I think AI cheating would fall into the misrepresentation side of it.
I think I'm quite on the opposite end of that argument. I would say that using the tooling that is available to you is part of your intelligence toolbox, right? I think using tooling is that AI or Google or Stack Overflow is a way to build technical co-intelligence to some extent. I think when it comes to the word cheating, I think over there, instead of getting hung up on the tooling, notes, all those things, I think we should put more focus on the intentional misleading. I think, hey, if you can solve your tech assessment by running it through Claude or ChatGPT and it works, happy days until you're transparent with that. Because if the assessment can be solved like that, won't you want an employee who is resourceful and uses the tooling available to them? On the other side, if the tool is banned, that's a totally different question. But I would say this sort of tools that actually bring the 10x performance should not be banned.
Your argument resonates with me. Two words stood out to me what you said: misleading and transparent. Right? If I go to get my car fixed, I'm going to assume that the mechanic's going to use some kind of tool. He's going to use a wrench, or he's going to hook up some wire to do a diagnostic, whatever. I'm expecting him to use tools to get the job done. I don't consider that cheating because that's in the realm of what I expect. But if I see him doing something, if he were to do something else and say he did it all himself, he didn't use a tool, then I think, okay, now you're misleading me. You know, you said you used a force to fix my carburetor, and that's going to be $2,000. I'm like, I don't know. Now you're misleading me because you're making me think you did something when actually something else did. So yeah, I think the words, when you talk about cheating loans, someone is transparent. I think you sort of get around that issue.
Yeah, I'm team transparency across the board. And I fully am in line with what Adam's saying. For me, don't claim it as your own necessarily. I always say don't outsource your creativity. Don't outsource everything to AI. Use it as an augment, a force multiplier. But like I said, I always go back to the transparency component, which all four of us have said, in that it's okay to use these tools. Like at some point in your career, if you're going to align your interview process and your assessments to what you're going to experience in the real world, you are going to use these tools. And it's transparency and skill representation and how you got there. For me, if I was reading interview scorecard notes, somebody in a technical interview said that they were going to augment this with using a tool, it's like, hey, that's great, because there's going to be times when especially like ours, a remote environment of 600 people across the globe, you can't knock on a door to ask somebody how to do something necessarily. So you have to use those tools available to you. I do support that. I don't support passing it off as something that is your own or is original and claiming that as yours.
I think over there, one thing that we should think about when we are on the hiring side is that we should not let the answer to that question to be created by the candidate. Like we shouldn't push responsibility of what tools can somebody use, what is acceptable to the candidate. I think first we need to do a lot of self-reflection and create an AI usage policy, an acceptable usage policy, and communicate that as we communicate with our candidates to prepare them and tell them like, hey, this is the tooling that you have access to. This is what you can use. You can bring your notes or you cannot bring in your own slide, whatever at the end of the day. But first you need to have an acceptable usage policy, as let's say you did in the past. If we're talking about coders, like companies define, should the person use a code editor in the browser, or can they use their own code editor? Should they use the tooling that we provide, or they can use a tool that they already have? Like, do they have access to Stack Overflow and can they copy in stuff, or they don't, right? Like I think first the hiring organization needs to do a lot of self-reflection of what is allowed in the workplace and how can we allow those and guardrail those in the interview process.
Yep.
Jim, you mentioned that tool where you can kind of look to the side, but it makes it look like you're looking at the camera.
It's Descript. It's called Descript. I just remembered it just now. It's called Descript.
Okay.
Not that I've used it or am using it now.
What are some other kind of common tools or methods that have been used by candidates besides that?
Sending in someone to impersonate you, which is I've had some experience with recruiting some people in India, and I know that at least from personal experience there, I wouldn't say it's uncommon, but it has been done where someone will come to interview and interview in your place. It's also been done where someone may be in the interview with you in the same room, and they have a chat on the screen. So as the interviewer is on speaker, maybe asking a question, their partner is typing up an answer or researching something really quickly and then putting it in the chat window, sort of like a little cheat sheet as they go along. I know that there are some services you can buy for people to either impersonate you in an interview or to augment your interview experience, shall we say. For I think the rate I saw last, like $150 an hour in India, which I thought was pretty interesting. So, but yeah, those are just top of mind.
And we've had scenarios where people just through going through all the different variations and stages of our application interview process, we actually found out that they were not who they said that they were. They had a different name, and just through reading through all the data, objective data, subjective data inside of the interview scorecard, there were some red flags and little things like Google image search, finding the same image on 7 different LinkedIn profiles. Like, people are literally trying to duplicate. I mean, that's not even using AI. That's just using false identity in this context. But I have heard of that happening, or just changing the image a little bit so that it doesn't quite look exactly the same. And there's a story I can share, but somebody actually did get hired, and it turns out they were a hacker from a different country that within minutes of getting hired, they embedded malware into the platform, like within minutes. I'll share it in the chat here.
Wow.
And it was a cybersecurity company that got duped by that, of all places.
Oh, the irony.
The irony of karma, right? Talking about like cheating in the process, I think there is, and what tools are available. There needs to be a segmentation of what part of the process are we talking about. Are we talking about an in-person, a video interview, or an assessment, an unmonitored assessment that can be done like async? Like if it's the first one, it happened a couple of weeks ago, even before the last update to the model, somebody was able to solve 75 or 77% of all lead code questions using Claude Sonnet 3.5. So if you are a company doing your technical assessments using algorithmic questions, well, you got to ask yourself, does this actually measure what I want to measure? Does it correlate, or just correlate or causate with on-the-job performance? So if you're doing async or on your own time technical assessments, quote unquote cheating, there are a bunch of options, right? Like you can stream your whole screen, you can copy paste your code, you can enable an AI tool that just finishes the coding lines and all that. If it's in person, it becomes trickier right now. So not even before in person. If it's just a video, live video inference is a technology that exists right now. I can change my face in a live video call and change my voice in a live video call to sound and look very, very different. Right now, if you look hard enough, you could kind of see it. In 6 months, a year and a half, who knows? So checking identity and checking realness in your process and authenticating, that's a hard word, your candidates will be a very, very important thing. In person, like I saw very interesting stuff over there as well, where people could use technology similar to Google Lens or Ray-Ban Metas that can live stream what you see on the video and put it on your ear or put it on your eyes. Like you can use something called the Brilliant Lab glasses that is like a Google Lens that just here's your question and outputs the response onto your eyes. So technical enablement cheating can be done at various stages of the process, and I think the guardrails that you need to build will depend on the process step that you're targeting.
Yeah, I think like, oh, sorry, Jim.
No, go ahead.
I mean, we're at a point where like things that we used to see in Mission Impossible movies are becoming potentially real. I could be wrong, but to me that seems, and I hope that would be rare, that somebody would go as far as to use a Google Lens type equivalent, but I like to think that people don't, or that they wouldn't. And that brings me to a point that you referenced, Adam, about the process. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of TA leaders or people who at some point in their career will or are currently building out processes that are hopefully trying to mitigate this type of risk. And so it's really important that from the moment of entry into your process to that time of offer or references and offer, that you're looking at a lot of different things. For us, we're not just hiring someone who can develop. We're looking for people who are going to be curious. They have a lot of behavioral competencies that are going to add to our team and our company that are here for the right reasons. We're assessing that too, almost as importantly as the technical components. I mean, you can find technical resources for your team. We want people who want to be here, and I always say wear the jersey. So my encouragement and what we try to do here at Design Pickle is every single interview has a very specific focus area where we give agency to our hiring team to call out things, like speak freely, like, hey, I think there might be an opportunity for the next interviewer to talk about this area or inquire, or maybe we need to somehow figure out a different type of way to assess that technical skill because maybe something happened in that technical interview or that live coding that we weren't sure about. As long as you're transparent about that from the jump, ideally you should have a process that by the time you get to that offer stage, there's not a ton of area to assess still, and that you feel really comfortable shipping that offer to somebody. So it's really holistic. And if you're worried someone is cheating, that's kind of a different conversation we talked about earlier. Like, how would you actually address that? I like to think that people are good and that they wouldn't, knowing full well that they'd probably get found out pretty quick in the actual job. But
it seems like we're at this point where AI detection is critically important, as well as identity verification, I guess. And I think maybe those are kind of neck and neck right now in terms of difficulty and capability. I think we're fast approaching a moment where AI detection might be more difficult than just simply verifying your identity. Like, and that, I think identity verification can be very difficult soon as well. But if you're in person, I don't know, maybe it's a prick of the finger. We've got Kalen's blood type. We know it's him, or whatever it is. It's going to be hard for AI to fake that. But with the, I don't even know what you're talking about, Adam, with these peripherals, with the, this, we can build him better next time type of Terminator stuff that you're talking about. That might be hard to detect even with somebody in the room. Maybe they have like a contact lens that's feeding them information or whatever. Which kind of like brings us to the point, and this might be kind of a circular conversation in a way where we go back to places where we were in the beginning, but where do we draw these lines? What is ethical? What is not ethical? And again, we want to, at the end of the day, when we bring people into these teams, it's because we need something done, right? We have this challenge. We need to build this thing. We have a problem that needs to be solved. If I bring this person in, is my pain going to go away? I think that's what we're trying. We just want to fix that, right? And if you're going to use augmented reality or peripherals or AI to help me solve my problem.
Yeah, I think the what that resonates, why that resonates with me is that it shows the growing significance. It was always significant, but the growing significance of personal experiences. Anyone can do a quick search and find something with Perplexity. I know it's one of Adam's tools, or Google, something like that, and you're going to get a very textbook standard answer. But if you can tell me something from your personal experience, where, okay, we had this issue, and I know this would be a problem because so and so loves to eat hamburgers and cheese, and I know he's going to spill cheese on the wire, so I anticipated that in advance. So I did this over here, then I used the other tool, and that's something that you want to be able to just look up really quick because it's your personal experience. I think those are going to be even more important and more significant in the interview process. Tell me something that you did personally. Tell me about something you did or that somebody else did and you had to compensate, because something like that can't be searched really quick. I think we're going to see more like that.
I think another thing that when this question comes up, another thing that we need to be mindful of and invite them into the room is workforce planning, is the hiring managers, because we are maybe angry at the candidate who solves a problem using some sort of tooling, and let's imagine that problem is an entry-level problem, right? Like the actual 10x type of capability where somebody uses tooling to solve the low-level, entry-level stuff, writing a boilerplate type of code so they don't need to type it out, all those things, but their skills don't end over there. Like the ceiling of their skills isn't the ceiling of the AI tool that they're using. Like they are coexisting, co-working with AI tools, right? If that's actually the case, that there is a candidate who can solve your problem, the entry-level problem using AI, well, then that is a workforce planning question. Like, do you need somebody who can solve that question on a whiteboard without any support? Or you just need somebody who can solve the entry-level stuff, the boilerplate code, or maybe even non-boilerplate code, like more complex code using tooling, and they are more of an architect of using the tooling and the knowledge that there is available. So I think this is also a workforce planning question of what sort of skills and productivity outputs do we actually need from our employees, and how can we measure that in our recruitment process. And our recruitment process should reflect our on-the-job life, right? So if on the job somebody has access to those tools, in my opinion, we should enable all of our candidates with the same tooling and environment that they would have access to in the job. Otherwise, there is a causation correlation problem over there between what we measure and how is the actual on-the-job performance looking like.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, structured interviews, but AI isn't gonna, I would say, it's not gonna riff with you. Like, it's not gonna ideate as fast necessarily. It may from like a technical standpoint, but if we're whiteboarding in a virtual room, the thought process of us and how we're speaking in relationship to our business, that would take a lot of prompting for AI to be able to do that for you. So I think there's a lot of value in structuring an interview process where you can have those kinds of more open-ended questions. And then you're going to start to see if somebody is literally talking like a robot, or if, like, little cues and videos, like people look up. I look up when I think. I like those kinds of things, because then that person, you can see them thinking versus their computer thinking. So structuring it in a way that you're hitting all of these areas is how we've gotten to the point where we can feel really comfortable. But also, Adam, you're talking about something like augmentation versus like a dependence on it. You don't want to hire someone that is entirely dependent on it. You want it as an augment so that they can be in those strategy sessions and whiteboard, and you can design an interview that can do that, but then also pressure testing actually the technical capability where they can use it, they can depend on it, they can also leverage their background in the space or in the function that you're hiring for.
I'm more blunt on that question. I would say if your problem is solvable, like there is a problem that you want to hire someone for, and that problem is solvable by somebody who is relying on the tool and it's basically just copy pasting in the answers from the tool, you need to ask yourself the question, do I actually need to hire for this role? Do I actually need the person for this, right? Because maybe we kind of like need to think about what is important for us, the way we get there or the output. Because if the output is important, we are just not liking the quote unquote cheating part of it, of how somebody got there, I would still take a step back and see like, hey, if technology that is running on its own can solve this without human intervention, then do we need a human for this job, or we need a human on top of this who does the architecture type of work, who is maybe guiding a swarm of AI agents? Like right now, one human can control hundreds, if not thousands, of autonomous or semi-autonomous AI agents creating stuff for you. Is that building a product? Is that creating something creative, a new UI or UX? Like those things are all possible. We just need to decide where do we put the value, on the road or on the destination.
Let me ask you that though. That's a good point, but a little paranoia pops up in the back of my head, because I think what you said represents the most dangerous part of AI if it works too well, right? So imagine that you're an airplane pilot, and a lot of the takeoff and landing is totally automated. Then one day the fuse goes out and you can't do it automated. So now the pilot, who's been most of his career spent using automated tools to land a plane, all of a sudden he has to do it manually, and he hasn't done it in forever. So now he is sweating, and everyone on the plane is kind of sweating. So it's almost like a catch-22. You want these tools to do these wonderful things for you and automate it, because now you can hire maybe less people, or at least remove certain steps. But if you don't keep a human being in the loop on some level, or at least do a fire drill or something every now and then if the wiring goes out or the power goes out or a wire short circuits, you don't want to be stuck not knowing what to do, because you've been automated so well that no one knows how to do it.
Yeah,
that you're hiring for them.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So that's why you hire somebody.
It could potentially change like your job architecture too, of like, what do you actually need, and do you need to plug that language into your, like for us, it's a competency-based hiring model in a certain level of like, you get to a certain level, like are they an individual contributor? Are they a people manager? Or are they an individual contributor that manages an AI function? And that way, you know that they're accountable to that. And so those are types of questions that you can integrate into an interview loop of like, how are you using A, B, or C tool? What would you do if it broke down, if the fuse blew, Jim? Like,
Right.
and then you get like some thought process of like what to happen. And you're talking about like the equivalent of like a disaster planning recovery kind of scenario, because that will happen, and I'm sure it has happened at places. But that's why the whole process to me is so important. In those kind of situational judgment scenarios, like what would you do if the fuse blew? That's super important as being able to use the tool, being able to manage the tool, or rely on it.
That requires risk assessment, right? Like, I think, again, hiring organizations need to take the responsibility for that and not just define ethical AI usage, but they also need to define their AI exposure risk and see what blank spots do they have and plug those blank spots in with human supervision. But I think that we should not make the mistake to generalize based on edge cases, because let's be honest, where human lives are involved, that's an edge case, right? But at the same time, let's be honest, planes take off from A, fly to B, land at point B without human intervention. People still jump on like underground trains that don't have a driver, right? So it's all about the risk assessment and creating checks and balances in your process, and where it's needed to have that multiple level of supervisions, have it. Where it's not, run, right? Like run as fast as you can, because one thing that we should not forget is that we see the vast majority sees a very, very general version of AI, right? Like we have experience with ChatGPT, we have experience with maybe Claude, maybe Gemini, but those are not specialized models. Those are not purpose-built models. Like, somebody can grab a purpose-built, purpose fine-tuned, and purpose-trained model that is better than a human in coding or folding proteins instead of doctors, or creating wireframes for UI and UX designers, right? So future-proofing your process is also important, and thinking about the open source world, because the world has access to tools, and access to technology is becoming easier and easier and easier, and the entry price point of that is also extremely cheap these days. So always have that like little bit sci-fi approach in the back of your mind that kind of like guides you, because what you see today, it's the worst version of the technology.
Adam, you talked earlier how these AIs are enabling people to get pretty far along with some of these coding processes, that it can answer, whether it's 75, 80% of all the questions. And it seems to me it's almost a paradox, but we were on this long quest to standardize the hiring process for everyone, to make it a consistent, it's fair, it's equitable. And it seems like that consistency and fairness has inadvertently made us more vulnerable to AI cheating, because it's literally, there's this, it's like a block form. The AI knows exactly what we're going to do and what we're going to ask. So how do we reintroduce that spontaneity and unpredictability, which is what we want to hire for? Are you agile? Can you pivot? Can you problem solve, while also incorporating the benefits of a structured process, while also, I was going to ask questions about developing AI resistant assessments, but maybe that's the wrong question. Is it even worth creating that?
I don't think so. And because you cannot do it well, because for you to be able to build an AI resistant process, that assumes that you have AI detection, and AI detection does not exist. Whoever tries to sell you AI detection tools, you should not trust it, because it cannot be done. Research and benchmarks show that AI detectors cause more harm than good, because they do a lot of false positives, and they cannot work with a high precision. Also, if somebody wants to go around them, there is a way to prompt it like that, right? Like if you want your AI to sound like a human, just tell it to use burstiness and perplexity and talk that you're understood by an 8th grader speaking level. There you are. Suddenly your AI sounds and feels like a human. You can even tell it to use filler words and all those things, right? So I think it's really, really, really hard to create a process where you cannot police it, right? Like you want to detect it, but you don't have a detection tool. You don't have a detection tool that is always correct. Because what happens when your faulty AI detector labels somebody as a cheater, and you say that, okay, we're not talking to you anymore, and that person brings a lawsuit against you?
It's interesting because I don't think there was a lawsuit related to it, but there was an artist on Reddit within the last couple of years that I think it was our art, which is like probably the largest art community on Reddit, and his artwork was identified as being AI produced, and it wasn't actually. But he got kicked out of that Reddit group, and then he went to Reddit and said, "Look, here's my process." He showed the canvas, and then the first layers of paint, and this is how I build up my artwork, and it's clear that it's not AI, right? And he went to Reddit and was able to prove it. And Reddit's stance was, well, it's the moderators group. We let the moderators do what they want, so we can't force them to let you back into this group. So that's not a lawsuit, right? But how soon are we going to face that moment in time where there is loss of income or loss of career or whatever over a false positive related to AI?
It's going to happen. I mean, there's so much regulation being debated now. It's going to come to a point like the first thing that comes to my mind is New York City Local Law 144, where it's a local law where this government entity will sort of look through your systems or look at your processes. And if they find that you're being biased in some way, your algorithm is being biased in some way, you get fined X number of dollars per day, right? So I think what's going to happen is eventually there's going to be a federal regulation across the board. Different states have regulations, different cities have regulations, but it's going to be a federal mandate eventually that says your system must be fair and unbiased as regulated by some body, right? So I think there's going to be like a lot. I'm saying this really badly. There's going to be a lot of companies making serious money, checking the systems of companies to make sure that they are not biased. And what's going to spark that on a national level eventually is that someone is not going to get a job that they feel like they should have gotten a job, whether it's hubris or whether it's true they should have gotten it, they didn't get it, whatever reason. Someone's going to make a big enough stink, they're going to sue a company, and that's going to get a headline, and that's going to trigger a great land rush, a great gold rush of companies checking for biases in your hiring process. It's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. But I would be shocked if it didn't happen in the next 10 years.
I mean, but bias in interviewing and hiring is nothing new. It's just it's like the
yeah, the EEOC, I guess, is the closest thing to, I guess,
right.
That now, I guess.
Right. I mean, I always go back to like competency-based hiring. We stack it in a way that's functional competency, like actual technical acumen, behavioral competencies, which to me seems like the weighting of that. I mean, I weigh that really heavily because I think you have to be pretty slick. It'd have to be pretty slick for an AI tool to navigate a behavior, like a set of behavioral questions that pivot and move. The third for us is core value alignment. Like, I don't think AI can align to our core value. You know, I'm not going to be able to speak to it as well. You might be able to talk through it, but the only thing you can really do is like build a process that mitigates risk. For us, one of the biggest predictors of success for us is curiosity. Curiosity can include how does one leverage the tools that the world has and is coming out with every day to help their job, to help the company, to help the team, things like that. I actually think that is a really good question to ask in an interview. Like, how would you actually use AI to solve X problem? And then you're looking at resourcefulness, you're looking at adaptability, you're looking at curiosity, and all of a sudden, 3 competencies that you're trying to nail for this position are hopefully going to be satisfied or get reflected in the scorecard. So that's the way I always approach it. But bias, like the bias conversation is just now stacked onto one another. It's now technical tools being biased in addition to what all humans have been historically, is bias, both positive and negative, in the process. I don't know the best. The best.
I don't think that tools are biased. We can talk about algorithmic bias and bias in the training data, and yes, that exists. But when an AI tool or any technical tool is biased, that's a fault of the human who set it up, because that human didn't put in mitigation steps to tackle that bias. Because if you do so, turns out all research shows, all bias benchmarks show that with correct training data, correct prompting, and correct system setup, an AI is less biased than a human. And we can already do that. We should not start with like, oh, we asked a 0-shot question, where you ask one question from a baseline AI without any priming, without any system messages, without any custom tuning, fine tuning, training, all those things, and it's biased. Like, yes, it is. Stop any human on the street, right, and ask them. Probably you'll find some bias. But research shows that with the right setup, with the right system messages, the AI systems become less biased, because you give them an order, and if it's a system message, usually they follow it. Can you go around that? Yeah, of course. But even just some easy stuff, when you say, hey, don't be biased, don't apply any gender, race, language, age, name all the biases in your thought process, and make sure you purposefully avoid those. And suddenly your AI outputs are way less biased. And also, I think we should not be, I think humans, we have an ego problem. We think that we are irreplaceable and we are fully unique, that our skills cannot be mimicked. And because of that, we have this expectation of perfection from our tools. And I think we should not have that. I think that is a mistake.
Yeah, the hallucinating in ChatGPT, a good example of that.
And also, you can go around that. Like, you can mitigate hallucination with adding in a second AI model to validate and check the responses of the first one. Or you just get ChatGPT to self-reflect and check its answers. And suddenly you're tackling hallucination with pretty well, until you are aware of the token context windows that you're working with. So don't forget, you're comparing to humans. An AI doesn't need to score 100% on your assessment. It just needs to score close to what a human does, an average human does. And average humans, we are not perfect. So when it's about using technology and using AI in our recruitment process, the very reason I said that we should have workforce planning in the room as well is that due to AI enablement, AI augmentation, and AI replacement of different skills and whole jobs, we need to ask ourselves the question again of, how does an entry-level job look like? How does the perfect 10-person team look like? How does the perfect 100-person startup look like? What skills do we actually need from an entry-level person? What productivity do we need from an entry-level, a mid-level, and a high-level person? And examine that question with AI enablement, AI augmentation, and AI replacement in your mind all the time. And what is good enough, right? Does it need to be perfect? No, humans are not perfect either.
It's going to be so much regulation. It's a big gold rush. Let me read 2 sentences. This is ChatGPT, not me, but I did remember the law. So New York City Local Law 144, also known as the Automated Employment Decision Tools Law, is legislation enacted by New York City to regulate the use of automated tools in employment decisions. Effective July 5th, 2023, the law imposes specific requirements on employers and employment agencies that use automated employment decision tools for hiring or promotion within the city. That's just one example. It's gonna be a gold rush of companies say, hey, it's a great company you got there. Let me protect it for you. And do some
I think
check AI.
the first line of defense, as we go into this is going to be, you can't have AI saying no to people. So basically, as we get to, if I get to my desk Monday morning and we ran an ad over the weekend and I got 1,500 candidates, I can't rely on AI to disposition X number of candidates. I can rely on AI to surface like, hey, here's the first 10 you should probably talk to. Oh yeah, these people look good. I'm going to start here. And then maybe go into the rest of them knowing these were not the ones that surfaced immediately, and kind of keep that in mind as I review. But you do need the human review to say no, I think. Adam, I want to circle back. You used a term that I had to look up. You do this every time I talk to you. Usually I need like literally a dictionary when I talk to Adam. Zero shot question. Can you unpack that?
Yes. When you just ask a question and one try, you ask a question from your AI and it has only, you ask the question and you take the first answer. That's a zero shot prompting. When you give it 10 options, like it can try 10 times to get the correct answer. That's like 10 shot or 5 shot and all that. And think about humans. How many times do you approach a problem and you get it correct at the first time? That is a zero shot try, right? So when you go into AI like that you, let's say you give it a system message, or you prime it with giving it the personality, you're giving it the rules, you're giving it the way to think, then you apply chain of thought prompting, where you ask it to first to create the thought process of answering the question. And after that, you ask it to go step by step and work through each of them. And after that, you ask it to review that, to self-reflect. And after that, you ask it to make it better based on, let's say, design thinking principles. Suddenly your response rates and the quality of the response rates go extremely up. Detection is that text, really hard. Audio, really hard since the last 1 to 2 months. Video, it's getting there. Like right now, video avatars, you can still see it, but the evolution is pretty fast.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to articulate this as well as I could, but this is where my soccer coaching brain comes in, and why I love behavioral questions, because I know that AI can mimic a behavior, but for me, like a behavior, something like resourcefulness and curiosity, I feel that so much more when I'm in a genuine conversation in a room with somebody, in a video room or something like that. I always said, like, some of the best goal scorers that we had on the college teams I coached, I can't teach them to want to score. I can teach them how. I can't teach them to want to score. And when you blend the ability to want to score with the person that knows how to score, then you're taking something and you're using what's already in them as making it better. And I look at candidate interviewing and looking at not weighing entirely on the behavioral side, but I think everybody on this call, both you three guys and probably everybody that's watching, has had a scenario where they're like, I can't describe why this candidate is so bleeping awesome, but you need to see them, hiring manager. And there are going to be times when I don't think AI can replicate that. My sense, my team's sense, my holistic assessment. Now, this isn't entirely from the gut, because the gut is not a reliable source of hiring. But I'm sure that people have seen that scenario where they're like, I just feel like this is a good person to move to the next round. And it's not art. I would say I don't make hiring decisions. I make recommendations for the next phase based on the data, the process, all these things. I may not be articulating that well, but I do feel like that human touch, you can't beat it. And that's why I can't get anything done, because I'm at the water cooler at the co-working space chatting with people. Like, but those are also people that I will hire me, I'll be friends with. AI is not there yet for me. But so please, I disagree.
Can I ask a poking question?
Sure.
Aren't you just introduced yes, I do agree with you. As a recruiter, I've been there multiple times where you just look at a profile or see a profile and you're like, this is good. 2 questions. 1, were you correct about that 10 out of 10 times? That's one question. The second question is, if you cannot define how does good look like and why do you think what you see is good, do you actually know what
I'll
are you
respond to
looking
that
for?
too after him.
And aren't you introducing bias, your own opinion bias, and bias at the hiring manager's side, saying that like, oh, the recruiter says that this is good. I don't know, but like I'm already biased because I got a positive signal from a person that I trust.
Yeah, these are good questions. Really good questions, Adam. One, if a CTO is going to be biased by what a frontline recruiter says about someone's ability to do something that I can't even explain, probably an internal issue there for us. Because who am I to tell the CTO, like, this is the best Python code or whatever the heck we're looking for that I've ever seen? I don't know. In fact, my early career was getting found out by technical people that I don't know. I don't know anything about machine learning engineering, a kindergarten level maybe. So who am I to tell them that? I'm saying, based on what you told me in the intake of all of these things that you rambled on about, all the crap that I put you through at the very beginning of this search, there's a reasonable probability that you will like this person. I am not usually that wrong. Do you want me to say 10 out of 10? Am I right? No, never. I actually don't want to be 10 out of 10, because you learn more from the 2, 3, 4, 5 that you miss than you do sometimes the ones that are right. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't think that we're at a point where AI is going to take everything that's in my brain and everything I've seen and know and can infer from somebody and do that for me. They may put a better set of candidates in front and center with the tooling inside of an ATS or whatever to help me get there faster. And I like that, but I still feel like outsourcing, you can't outsource how you feel and how someone makes you feel and how aligned they are to your company and your values and things like that. I will go down swinging with that in my heart and soul, because I really believe that. I'm also such a pro people person too. I work in a design space, a creative design space, and the AI generated design is incredible, but it's not yet able to be branded exactly the way that somebody would want it. So there's a human behind every design that we send to our client here. It may have generated it originally with AI, which is great, because that's actually maximizing our time to serve our customers and our people, but it's still got to have a human touch.
Can I?
Two things that to piggyback on what Adam and Kaylin just said. Kaylin, I think when you were saying that you saw a candidate and you couldn't say why they were good, but you knew they were good, reminded me of the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, which basically says your subconscious mind is working faster than your conscious mind. So your conscious mind hasn't caught up with your subconscious thoughts. Eventually it does, and you figure out that's why you like this other person. Why you like this person. But to the other point is about human beings being in the loop. I thoroughly agree with you there. Tools are definitely necessary. When you get, you post a job, you get 1,000 replies, you definitely need a machine to help get through that. But there's a small part there's a part of me too that makes me think, okay, when these tools sort out all of these candidates, are they sorting out the best candidate, or are they sorting out the candidate that had the best resume, or the person who could sell themselves the best on the resume? And this is an example of that, because I know Adam's going to come at me with that.
No.
Okay,
I do agree with you. I do agree
this
with
is
you.
my argument. This Mark. Okay, hold on. Let's see, Mark, before I forget. Okay, so on the SourceCon website, sourcecon.com, there was an article where I did a search for a cybersecurity person or whatever, right? And I went on Amazon.com and I found a book, and I said, okay, I don't know anything about cybersecurity. Um, but I see this book is highly regarded, has been rated, 1,000 times. This book is awesome, whatever. So I'm thinking, okay, this book has been peer reviewed. So by virtue of all these comments, this person must be pretty good at what they do. So I go look them up on LinkedIn, barely name, rank, and serial number, right? And so I'm like, okay, this is an example of somebody I would not find in a LinkedIn search, someone who was super qualified, but based on their profile, they wouldn't come up with any kind of search. But if I happen to talk to this person and he says, "Oh, I wrote a book about this, that, and the other," and I looked the book up that way, like, "Oh, wow, you really are super qualified." So all that to say, I think tools are great, and I definitely am a big proponent of them up to a certain point. Then at that point, you got to have that human connection. You got to be able to talk and then do that follow through, because you're going to find out those little nuggets of information that they did not put on their resume or their profile. Because at best, tools find the best person for the job based on the information that they have given on their profile. Not necessarily the best person for the job. For that, you need to know a human being to ask those crucial follow-up questions.
We're almost out of time, and as we head to the finish line, I want to make sure that we end on a positive note, because again, we cannot put this back in the bottle. AI is here, and I love the comment that came up earlier of asking candidates how they would leverage AI within different scenarios. So as we kind of get to the end of this, how can we continue to provide great candidate experiences while defining what is ethical and unethical, and kind of encapsulating all of what we've discussed, so that moving forward, it is a fun, engaging, exciting process where we can identify the best people to bring into these teams that are gonna be successful and productive. I don't even know if that was a question, but I want to make sure we're headed that way.
Yes, I'm tracking. I mean, I'll jump in first, guys, if you don't mind. I'm all about transparency of, like, your candidate experience should match your onboarding experience, and it should match your employee experience. They should all feel similar. And so definition around what is acceptable use, I think when you're going through these interviews and pushing people through the loop is critical. Like, what can you do? Because if I was a candidate, I would ask, what can I use? Like, what's my box here that I can stay within? So for us, like, we're a design company, so we have all these really cool designs of, like, what does the next interview look like? Who are you interviewing with? What's it going to be like? And it actually has some of those FAQ type things in it. We get ahead of that by doing that, and we over communicate that to the people in our process, because the same will be true when you're in seat here.
I actually have three quick things to add. One is definitely human in the loop. Like, do not allow any system to run on its own and make decisions on its own. But these days, you can put the human in the loop where in a different parts of the process, maybe way higher up, or where they see a way bigger scope, right? So human in the loop, definitely, but it can be more higher up in the process. Another thing is candidate experience and serving candidates. Using AI tools for the entry-level part of your process, you can do a lot of automation that serves your candidate experience. You can create AI agents that they can chat with. You can create AI voice agents that they can have a screening call with to collect information, or you can give the option to talk to a person, right? The reason that we think that a chatbot is bad, or a phone screening bot is bad, is just because you didn't see a good one yet. And believe me, very, very good ones exist out there. So actually using AI in your process will help your candidate experience. And lastly, we talked a lot about sorting out, AI saying no, all those things. I would flip that coin. And as the good old Glenn Cathy says, see decisions to screen out and not to screen in, right? Like, Now with AI, when you have 1,500 candidates coming in, you can use your AI screening tools to actually screen all those 1,500s, right? Without a human needing to review them. So have that approach that you should look at candidates regardless if you as a human or you're using AI or using an AI assessment tool. Look for reasons for talk to this person and not to talk for this person, or sorry, the other way around. Look for reasons not to talk to this person, because if you cannot find any reason like that in the first 15 to 20 seconds, you should talk to that person, or you should assess that person with some sort of tool. So use AI instead of fearing that AI will have bias and will rule out people. Set up your AI tooling and assessment so it rules in as many good people for humans to talk to higher up in the loop.
I think the best AI tools are the ones that make the recruitment process seamless and give a positive candidate experience. There's a reason why some restaurants can charge high prices and why McDonald's can charge you a small price. One, you may say McDonald's is really automated. If you think about it a certain way, from drive-through to how you get your food to how the food's prepared, super duper automated, right? And then you may have a Numi or Ruth's Chris or some other fancy restaurant. Doesn't give you the food nowhere near as quick, but it gives you a better experience. And so because they have a better experience, you're willing to sit there, you're willing to make a reservation, you're willing to wait in line, make a reservation and sit there and wait for your water, then wait for your salad, then wait for your meal, and wait for this, that, and the other. Whereas if you went to McDonald's, you would have got your food and been home and burped within 30 minutes, So the best tools are the ones that make it seamless, make the recruiting process seamless, that make the candidate experience wonderful, for lack of a better word. So yeah, that's all I'm trying to say there.
I can't thank you all enough for today's conversation. And Jim, you came in a pinch. So really, really cannot believe we had the SourceCon editor on this webinar. Oh my gosh. But Kaylin and Adam, thank you so much for the effort that you put into this and the planning on the front end. And just, again, every time I talk to you two, either individually or together, I learned something. So thank you so much. To everybody in the audience, thanks for tuning in and for your continued support. If you want to get involved with our programming, we're always looking for speakers. So reach out to Jim, reach out to myself, because we have a lot of awesome content in the works that we're going to be bringing to you. If you're not ready to present, but you have topics that are just kind of burning a hole in your soul, or that sounded weird, in your mind, let us know, because we want to bring you the content that's going to help you make an impact with your team. And of course, thank you so much, DecoderPad, for making today's presentation possible. You have been great partners, so thanks for your continued support. If anybody here has not checked out CoderPad, don't walk to their website and just check out everything that they're about. And without any further ado, we did run a little long. You can carry on with the rest of your day. It's been great. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Till we meet again.